Can you really become a PCI QSA in 90 days or less? Well, the short answer to that is no. Sorry to break your heart, but it's absolutely not. But, unless you've been in IT for, let's say, 5 years, a little bit longer than that, maybe you have a chance of becoming a PCI QSA in 90 days or less. In this video, I'll talk to you about how can you actually become a PCI QSA. Like the right way, or what they recommend is the right path for you to becoming a PCI QSA. Let's get right into it. Maybe you've seen a video online where somebody's telling you that you can make a lot of money by becoming a cybersecurity PCI QSA. And let's find out. Let's head over to Indeed.com. You can do this with me. So go to Indeed.com and then type in PCI QSA. You can also put the remote in a location section, put a remote in there, or just put the city where you're located, and then just search for PCI space QSA, or just search for QSA. It's well known. It's one of those hidden secrets in cybersecurity where people who specialize in the PCI, yeah, they do make a lot of money. So here's what Indeed is telling us, and you can do this with any other job search engine. Just knock yourself out. Here, one, you can make 120 per hour. There we go. That's some good money. 150 by becoming a PCI consultant. Well, we keep going down. Look at this. Well, you can be making $141,000 for a year. When I say 150, it was $150,000 a year. This goes up to $168,000 a year. You can obviously negotiate your way to these things as well. So it keeps going down. You can see that there is a lot of money to be made. So if somebody's telling you, oh, you can be a PCI this, a PCI that, and there's a lot of money to be made in PCI or by specializing in PCI, they're not lying to you. But by them telling you can do that in 90 days, they're probably lying to you. And here is why. So in this video, go back to this. In this video, we'll talk about a few things. We'll talk about a little bit of history of PCI. I want to go back a little bit and tell you, what is this PCI? How did it become to be, and why should you specialize in this? It was introduced back in 2006, but it has its roots back in late 90s, like 1999 going to 2000-ish. So we will take a look at that, and then can you really become a PCI QSA in 90 days? Like I said, it's no, but I'll show you how. All right? I'll show you how you can actually become one. So what is the requirement of you becoming a PCI? I will share all those requirements with you, not from my brand, but we're gonna go to the website so we can dig those out a little bit from the people who actually created a PCI as well. Then we'll take a look at the 6 goals of PCI. When you become a PCI quality assessor, like, what do they expect you to know? What are you going to be doing? Right? And then we're going to take a look at the most important skills of those who become PCI QSAs, those who become security assessors, and to be assessing companies based on the PCI requirements. Now, from there, I'm going to kind of share with you some of the resources that will help you get started. Check the description of this video to access those resources. Let's go. So what is the history of a PCI DSS? How did it become to be? Well, before we talk about that, let's go back a little bit. Back in 1994, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon.com, started Amazon.com, right? And Amazon.com or any other online-based websites required people to buy things, and people had to enter in their credit card number for them to buy stuff, get those things shipped to them. So in late 1990s and back in 2000s, credit card vendors started to have a lot of problems. These credit card brands, they call them. We're talking about the Visa, the MasterCards, the American Express, the Discover, right? These a card brand that we have in our credit cards, they start having issues with security. First, each one of them have their own guidance. Be like, okay, if you're going to be accepting credit card, here is how you should be doing that. In our own term, as Visa, these are the requirements. If you're a company, they call those merchants. I can't talk. Merchants, they call those merchants. If you're a merchant and you're going to be accepting credit cards, here is how. These are the requirements that you need to obey, right? So it was way too confusing. So starting in 2004-ish, starting in 2004-ish, they got together and they joined forces. They created what is known as a PCI SSC, which is a council that look over the PCI requirements. So they formed this council. They said, none of us is in charge of this council. This council is going to be independent, and that it's going to develop the standards, the guidance, if you will, that's going to be used by these credit card, these banks or these stores that accepts credit cards. Basically, any business that accepts credit card will have to follow these rules or will have to obey these requirements. So in December 2004, they released the very first version in the very first draft, but it took them a few years. When I say few years, I'm talking about 2006. That's when they actually released the requirements to the public. Now, over the years, there have been different variations of it. Right now, we have the PCI version 4.0 or 4.0.1 specifically, that they recently just added that one to it with a few modifications. But over the years, they have modified these requirements based on how technology is evolving. You're not here to just learn about the history of PCI. I'm sure you couldn't care less. I just like to do this kind of stuff. I like to know the urgent of things. Anyway, you're here to learn can you actually be a PCI QSA in 90 days or maybe less, as some of these people are telling you online that you can be. Well, let me tell you what. If you are experienced, you've been in IT for about 5 years or more, maybe you can. Maybe you can. The part of the reason is because there's a lot of requirements when it comes to PCI that you have to meet those requirements. There is no shortcuts, really. There's no shortcuts at all when it comes to PCI. You have to meet those requirements before you can be given the title of becoming a QSA. First, you must be working full-time for what they normally call a validated QSA company, or QSAC, they call themselves. Well, this is a company that is approved by the council to assess PCI, right? To assess on the behalf of, PCI requirements. For this company to be a QSAC, it has to go through, there's some money they have to pay as a company, which is a lot, but they also must sponsor people to be QSAs. In another word, for you to even be a QSA, you must work a company that is approved to hire QSAs. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. If you leave that company, your QSA status is gone. Basically, for you to be a QSA, you must be working for a QSA company. So you can just come from out of nowhere and be like, oh, from now on, I'm going to start doing some QSA stuff. It doesn't work like that. The company have to sponsor you. Yeah, have to sponsor you. After the training, after everything, they have to basically put the application on your behalf. And they have to be a validated QSA company for that to go through. That's number one. Or you also must have two certifications. One has to be a cybersecurity certification, and another one has to be an auditing certification. So if we go to their website, which we will in a minute here, they require you to have the CISSP or the CISA. For CISSP as a security certification, and the CISA or one of those ISO 27 lead auditor type of a certification for auditing. The CISSP and the CISA in themselves, they're required to have 5 years of experience before you can get them. Before you can be a fully CISSP personnel, you must have been in cybersecurity doing the security related things for about 5 years. So that's requirement number 2. Well, requirement number 3, after you have your CISSP or CISA, right, you must take like a 2-part PCI training. Part 1 is this PCIC fundamentals training, which basically teach you all about credit cards. At some point, I wanted to get that certification. The other training you must take is a 2-day instructor-led QSA course. This one, most of the time, is taught in person. Instructor-led is taught in person or maybe online. In some situations, you can take this from online. So Once you've went over this kind of QSA course, they give you an exam. You must pass that exam. If you don't pass, you don't make it. You must pass that exam. Then after that, and only then, you can start performing QSA. You can start offering what they normally call a report on compliance or ROC, which are like the certification that you give it to a company that is complying with PCI. So there are six kind of goals of PCI that you kind of need to be aware of. There's like 12 requirements when it comes to the requirements. Those 12 requirements, they need to accomplish what they have like six goals. And this is like what you exactly do. Again, I'll put the documents in the course description. I say the course, but this is just a short video. In this video description, I'll put the requirements, the documentations, the links, everything you need for you to kind of know what is required to get into PCI. So one is building and maintaining a secure network and systems. Look, you're not going to secure what you don't know you have. All right. You can't secure things you don't know. You cannot attack things you don't know. So they start from there. It's like installing and maintaining. That's requirement number one. Installing and maintaining network security controls. Requirement number one. So if you have these systems set it up, are you installing them securely? Are you maintaining the security of the systems? And by the way, whenever PCI says this, they're specifically talking about the systems that are used to house credit card data. They don't care about anything else. They really don't care if you're doing security on anything else. But anything that touches the credit card, I'm talking about from the register to the wire that carries that credit card numbers until it gets to the database, you have to secure that. So that's what they're talking about here. Requirement number two is apply secure configurations to all systems. Again, the systems that house the credit card data, that attaches the credit card data. So goal number two is to protect the cardholder data. And basically, you go in requirement number three, you are protecting the storage where the data is located. By the way, one of the best thing you can do when it comes to PCI is segmenting your network. Right? Remove as many things that attaches that credit data as you can, and hence you have less things to worry about, less things to protect. So that's the requirement number two. Oh, no, that requirement number three, goal number two. Requirement number four is protecting cardholder data with a strong cryptography, meaning encryption. You're going to encrypt things. You're going as the credit card is going point A to point B. You got to make sure you're using encryption. Right? You got to make sure you are protecting that data, VPNs and things like that, as it's going to a public networks. So goal number three is maintain a vulnerability management program. Absolutely. They want to know how vulnerable you are. And there's requirement number five and requirement number six in that particular goal. Number five, protect all systems and networks from malicious software. Yeah. Again, it's very broad, it's vague, but you got an idea of what they want you to do here. Six is develop and maintain a secure systems and software, right? You're going in there, you make sure you don't have any weaknesses, any vulnerabilities in either software, systems, computers, you name it. You're going in, you are having a pretty good vulnerability management program in there. Goal number four, which has the requirements number 7, 8, and 9. Goal number four is implement strong access control measures. This is the IAM, the Identity and Access Control. So restricting access to systems components and cardholder data by business need to know, which means if they don't have a business of accessing the register or accessing the thing that has the credit card data, they should not have access to that system. And number 8 is identify users and authenticated access to a system components. Again, anything that is housed that credit card data, there's a need to know. Only the people who are supposed to be accessing that are the ones that are accessing it. And you got to make sure those are, they're authenticated. That's where you start from. 9 is restricting physical access to the cardholder data. If you have that database, that's where these cardholder data is in, you got to limit who have access to that location, either physically. If it's in the cloud, make sure people can just accessing those buckets that's within the cloud. In fact, cloud providers themselves, if they house PCI, they have to comply. Well, I say PCI, but if they house credit card data, they have to comply with PCI. That's how it's true, like PCI is so important because every business needs credit card data. Every business needs people to pay them. And the best way to pay people nowadays or now is through credit cards and debit cards. And the PCI is at the center of all of that. And they don't care if you're a bank, a cloud provider, a regular merchant, mom and pop shops down the street. If you accept credit card data, you have to obey PCI. And if you don't, there's consequence. Actually, let me just go and talk about that since I got off the topic here. So one of the consequences is they're gonna remove the ability for you to accept credit cards. What kind of business that can survive if they cannot accept credit card data? I mean, credit card. All right. If people cannot pay you as a business, how are you going to survive? The next consequence is they can increase the amount of fees, the fees that you pay as you're accepting credit cards. So if they were charging, let's say, $2 for $100 transaction, they can increase that to $10. Business, they don't want to hear that. So therefore, that's why they go in and they implement PCI. That's why PCI people make a lot of money, because this is that important to businesses. All right, back to these goals. So goal number 5, it's regularly monitor and test your networks. That's the goal. And the requirements here is requirement 10 and requirement 11. Are you going to log and monitor all access to systems, components, and cardholder data? You're logging everything, you're monitoring everything. This is where the CIEM comes in. And 11 is test security and systems and networks regularly. This is where the penetration testing housed in. People are doing pen testing, right? You're regularly testing the environment that housed the credit card data. Goal number 6. Goal number 6 is maintain an information security policy. And there's one requirement here, requirement 12, which is support information security with organizational policies and programs. This is where security awareness training comes in. This is where you're developing policies and procedures. Governance, it's in that goal as well. So as you can see, these are the goals. These are the goals that you must put in place. And there's 6 goals, but there's 12 requirements that you must put in place. There's a document that goes in details on how you assess these as you're going in and assessing the organization that you're trying to assess, with the PCI. And that document have check boxes where you say, oh, is this in place? Do you have a firewall in place? Yes, we do. Well, show me, send me a screenshot to prove it that you do have that firewall. You check the boxes. You're like, yep, they do have the firewall in place. So your question might be, got it, Francois, this is all great and fascinating, but what are the most important skills that a PCI QSA must possess? Well, I give you a few because I do have 2 QSA friends that I regularly talk to who pretty much almost got me to specialize in PCI at some point. Not anymore. But they got me pretty much specializing in PCI, which, I mean, we'll see where my career goes, right? But here's what they said that is the most important skills for you to become a PCI QSA. Skill number 1 is becoming a people skill, get to know how to deal with people. And here is why this is critical. When you're a PCI, when you're a QSA, you have to be in meetings, right? You have to meet with the different people from different departments, if you will. So you're going to have these meetings and you're going to meet with people who knows technical stuff. You're going to meet with people, like everything that the credit card touches, you're going to have to meet with these people who dealt with those systems, from the people who are using it, from the people who are kind of protecting it. So you got to be that people person because you are going to have meetings with the different people. Another one that's very important, it's writing skills, right? You got to know how to write down and explain what you have assessed. And this is important because you are going to produce the ROC, which is the report on compliance, if you're a QSA, of course. But there are also some justification in some situations where you say, okay, they didn't implement this particular control, but they did this other control, and here is why. So you gotta know how to do your writing. But you don't have to be a type of person who write novel, right? You don't have to be a person who write books, but you gotta know how to explain things and explain things for different audiences as well. So three, segmentation and segmentation. And did I say segmentation? Yeah, I did. Segmentation some more. Like I said, the kept secret to PCI. This is from my friends who are doing PCI, who've been doing this for a while. The secret to a PCI is segmenting your environment. If you go in there and you say, you don't touch the credit card, you don't touch credit card, use systems here, you don't touch credit card, that really reduced the scope. It reduced the scope of the things that you have to assess, right? Or you have to make sure they are compliant with PCI. Because as soon as it touches the credit card, then it's within the scope of a PCI, which means all the controls that we talked about have to be enforced on whatever that is. It could be an application, a system, a person. It doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter. So segmentation, it's really, really huge when it comes to this. Another thing, it's you got to know how to read technical documentation, but also read the technical screenshots. Like I said, when you're a PCI auditor, you are auditing. You're an auditor. So basically you show up, you're like, hey, do you have a firewall in place to protect this? They're like, yeah, we do have the firewall. Show me. Prove to me that the firewall is in place. So they might take a screenshot and send it out to you, but you have to be able to read those firewall rules, those access control list rules, and then make the decisions if the rules have been applied or not. If you are a QSA and you are watching this, you're like, oh, hold on, Francois, you are way, way off the top. I mean, you have no idea what you're talking about. Please put that in the comment section, right? Put that in the comment section as well. Put some of the skills that you think are very important for the people who want to become a QSA. Put those in the comment section. Last thing that I want to share with you is a couple of resources that can help you become a QSA. And I'll put this in the description section. Well, there's a course on Pluralsight, which I highly recommend. I really like it. I took the course myself. The guy, he's experienced, but Pluralsight courses, they can put you to sleep. But he talks about some pretty good stuff. So I highly recommend that course. But also Audit Scripts. Audit Scripts, the people who started Audit Scripts are the same people who are maintaining the CIS controls, those 2018 controls that we get from the SANS Institute. They also teach for the SANS. So they have a mapping of the CIS control to PCI. Love it, love it, love it. So they have these master mapping tools that tells you if you do these controls, you're also accomplishing PCI. So that's a really, really great place to start as well. And there's also a bunch of documentations from PCI themselves. Again, all these links are going to be in the description of this video. So if I can go back here quickly, let me go to Audit Script quickly. So Audit Script, unfortunately, they recently changed their website's name. They now call themselves Cybersecurity Risk Foundation. And they say they recently acquired Audit Script. Okay, fantastic. James Tawala, I can't say his last name right. He's the one who was in charge of Audit Script, and he's also the one behind Cybersecurity Risk Foundation. But you come right here, they got a couple tools for you. A bunch of what they put here, it's free. A bunch of what Audit Script did or used to do, it's free. So check that out. I'll put that in the course description. But also, this is the PCI library, and they have a bunch of documentations here. So you want to know the latest PCI version, you go to the library, document library, they call themselves, and then you just download it from here. When you click on download, they ask you to sign in. It's one of those. So you got to not really sign in by creating an account, and they want to know who's downloading this. So 4.0 is the latest. With the .1 there, they made some changes, and they kind of that's kind of the latest. 4.0.1, that's the latest. But you can get all the other documentations from here as well. For example, you can get the ROC documentation here. But if you download it from here as well, like I said, they will ask you to give them your information before you can access it. But here is an example of that requirement, that piece of paper, the 4.0 that I was talking about. And if I scroll up a little bit here, there we go. They're going to introduce the they're going to introduce the PCI. Then from there, they're going to talk about the requirements and so on and so forth. And then when you scroll all the way down here, you can see the detailed PCI requirements. Now, these are the ones that I just went over with you. They're going to give you the goals, but also the requirements in there as well. So this is that documentation you have to eat and breathe when you're focusing on PCI, this documentation right here, because this tells you what PCI wants, exactly what PCI wants when you're assessing a company. So for becoming a QSA, like I mentioned, it's really important for you to have the CISSP or the CISA or the CISM and the CISA. So you got to have two certification. One has to be a security certification, another one have to be an auditing certification. I mentioned that, and I'll share this link in there as well. And here is the QSA, qualified security assessor, they call it themselves. And this is kind of the requirements, basically the same stuff that I've been talking about thus far. With that, I wanted to thank you so much for watching this video to the end. And I just want to say, if you got value out of this video, please smash that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.